I saw Mel Robbins speak before she wrote the 5-second rule.
Mm-hmm.
And could I tell you what she spoke about? Nada. I did not remember one thing from her speech because she hadn't figured it out yet. And when she boiled it down to one idea, the 5-second rule,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically just, it's like Nike's just do it,
Mm-hmm.
get off your butt and go do something. And she started delivering that speech. That's when her career skyrocketed. And so it's amazing how people think that you need to complicate things, but it's actually the most simple things that get you the most mileage in business.
What if saying no was the very thing that set you free? Jane Atkinson spent years helping others shine, from high-profile speaker bureaus to catapulting some of the biggest names on stages around the world. Her personal journey began with rejection, self-doubt, and the silence that follows when you launch a business and no one shows up. But Jane didn't give up. She turned that quiet into clarity, built a thriving podcast and coaching practice, authored The Wealthy Speaker, and now helps others find the courage to step into their own spotlight with boundaries, belief, and a crystal clear brand. Jane's story reminds you how to accept a no, but also how to deliver a successful no here on Navigating No. Jane, thank you so much for being a part of this, because you have been a mentor on the back end for me for a long, long time, because you've been called I'm being serious. You've been the speaker launcher is what people call you, right? And it's like, you're an author and you have this amazing podcast that I found you called the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, about how to become a better speaker and how to improve your career and how to transform it to become more than what just speaking for free, for example. And you've just been this light in my life that has helped me. And I end up listening to you and all of your guests all the time. And thank you for being a part and a guest on my podcast today.
I am so thrilled to be here, Blue, and I can't wait to see where we go with Navigating No.
Well, it's funny because when you and I had our preliminary call and I reached out to you, you were like, so is this about delivering a no or how to tell people no? And I'm like, no, it's more like how you receive the no. But I love the fact because, and we have talked about this, speaking from the stage, and navigating no is one of my topics or one of my keynotes.
Yes.
And it's like, especially speaking to HR, how to deliver the no is just as important as receiving it, right? And so it was, you had this little light go off on me. I'm like, we need to include that a little bit more. So thank you for being open to being the guinea pig on that.
That's why I said yes so quickly. I'm like, I'm a master of no. Like, I have no problem saying no. I'm pretty sure I've got myself in this tight little bubble because of my no, and it leads to my happiness. So yeah, I love to talk about that too.
Oh, I love that. But you bring on so many guests and you're changing lives. You really are. You're changing careers, but you're also changing people's lives. And I don't even know the reach that I think you have, because I didn't know who you were. And I was turned on to your podcast through a friend, and all of a sudden it was like, and that was several years ago. And it's like, you're just making an impact and your reach is getting farther and farther all the time. And I just look up to you for that. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart for being that inspiration to me.
Thank you. I love it. And honestly, sometimes I feel quite clueless about what our reach is. And then I go to some sort of event and people are, oh yeah, I listened to your podcast. Or the guests that I've had on the show will say, I got more people reaching out to me because of the podcast. And that makes me feel really, really good, because I don't know if you've ever done anything and there was crickets.
Yeah.
Where you've said, hey, if you want this, and I've done this on the podcast like a gazillion times, we can start with my first fail. on the podcast, I'll say, okay, if you want to know, here's your call to action. Dead silence, Blue. Dead silence. Nobody reaches out to me. I mean, I get it kind of indirectly, but I don't, if I do a call to action on the podcast, I usually do not get a flood of information back.
Mhm.
Sometimes it happens on social media more organically, but it's really interesting to me that sometimes I feel like nobody's listening.
Oh, I love it. Nobody's listening to me. It's okay. But I think that's part of the challenge in the process, right? Like that's our journey. I started the podcast to create a platform. Actually, Brendan, my producer, was like called me out on it, and he was like, "You should have a platform for your next book and for your speeches." And I'm like, "Well, what better way to do that than podcasting?" He says, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about podcasting, but we're hitting our 50th episode. Actually, by the time this reaches it, we're already past our 50th, and I know you're at almost 350 episodes. So you've done this for over a decade. You
Mhm.
have like New York Times bestselling books. You have 12 books under your resume.
Wait,
You're
wait, wait. Let me clarify. I have 6 books in the areas of speakers, the Wealthy Speaker 3.0. And I would call the Wealthy Speaker a bestseller, but we've not made the New York Times
New
list.
York Times.
So
Okay.
let me
I
make sure we're accurate and authentic here. I don't want to blow smoke.
Okay, there's no smoke on this one, but I do know that I've read your book and I know that people, and you keep changing the number on it. It keeps going up. It's almost like those Apple iPods that you got to keep.
I'm at the 3.0. That was the third and final edition of the Wealthy Speaker.
Don't say that because I'm going to hold you to that promise. It might be 3.5.
No, 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 and no.
Okay.
I see how easy that came to me.
I was
No,
told no again today. Like, did you hear
I'm
that? I heard that.
I'm done
Um,
writing that book. Yeah,
Okay,
finished.
well, I love that. So, but you have this huge resume, and you've changed careers, and you've found different drives and passions throughout your life. And so, can you introduce our audience to basically like kind of your journey as working with the speaker bureaus, being a speaker yourself, and
Yes.
then also starting your own podcast and being an author?
Okay. So I started as an agent for speakers. I really stumbled into it, kind of a little bit of manifestation. I saw a speaker, Les Brown, and I'm like, oh, that's what I should do next. I should go and work for a speaker. And I wrote Les Brown this brilliant letter, and they sent me back an order form for his products. So that didn't pan out. But within 2 weeks of that, you just put it out
Yeah.
there. I actually landed a job working with a speaker. I was on a contract with 3M at the time, and an ex executive at 3M had written a book, and she was about to embark on a speaking business. And so the timing was beautiful. And I started first job, basement office in her office, 3 years straight commission.
Mm.
I learned, like, I got thrown into the deep end of the pond. I learned the hard way what the business was all about. I learned how to take no. I learned how to be okay with rejection. I was like smiling and dialing back in the day. And so I doubled my speaker's business year over year. So she sent me to my first National Speakers Association conference. And it was there that I met my second, my third, my second and my third bosses that were
Mm.
to become. So I got recruited out to Vancouver, worked for another speaker for a couple years. Then I went down to Dallas and worked for another speaker for 4 years and his wife's company, which was a speakers bureau in Dallas for 2 years. I ran their exclusives division, and we had like celebrities and best-selling authors. And so after that was a period of about 15 years, I had been doubling speakers' businesses year over year. I took my last speaker in Dallas from zero to $1 million in speaking fees. And
Mhm.
so 9/11 happened, and I moved back to Canada, and I hung out my shingle as a coach. So when I went out to speak, Blue, it was simply to get business.
Sure.
It was never on my radar to become a paid professional speaker. It was never something. I always felt like I was behind the scenes pushing people out into the spotlight.
Mhm.
I didn't need it to be me. And so got trained as a coach, asked the lead guy who was training all the coaches how much he charged, and thought to myself, okay, well, I'm probably going to double that pretty quickly. And I did, and then continued to double and double. And so that was enough. I think I have 23 years now under my belt with my own business
Mm-hmm.
as a coach and a coaching practice. And so I got really, really big and really, really complex with lots of team. And now I'm at the point, I just turned 60 last year. And I thought, you know what? Too complex. And I started to scale everything back. And my husband and I are kind of both in not retirement mode, but our goal is to only do the work that we love.
Oh, I love that.
I do 3 days a week now, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. I record podcasts on Tuesdays and I coach.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesdays, Thursdays are all for coaching. And we have long weekends and we go up to our cottage for weeks on end in the summertime.
So you're taking care of yourself, but you're also still making a difference and still providing value to so many different people.
Yes. And kind of cherry picking the people who are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
They're, I'll talk to 3 prospective people and one of them will be a perfect fit for me. And that's who I'll work with.
Well, I love that you mentioned that because that kind of is the delivering of the no, how to tell somebody no, right? And when I was a personal trainer for Golds, I was booked so much and I could only charge so much per hour. And I was at the point where I was like, if you want to be with me and you want me to train you, I have to charge X, but then I can't keep adding clients. And so I was in a great spot where I could pick and choose my clients, right? Like the ones that I had that I saw the most potential in or wanted the most, or I could change their life and I enjoyed working out with them. That was a great place to be. And this is something that will probably relate to you very much, is that my wife always asks me, like, when is your speaking career going to take off? Like what is the end answer? Like, what is it? And it doesn't have to be $1 billion a year. It just has to be, this is my goal. My goal is when I don't have to ask people if they're looking for a speaker, I want to be the person that is called in and said, do you have time to speak for us? Right? Like, that's a huge difference. And that's a different place to be. Right.
Yeah.
And to be able to tell them, like, no, I can't because I'm booked or I'm busy or I have time with my family or I'm at my cottage. Right. And it's like, that's just a different place in my life. And it's like, I'm trying to get there. And it seems now you're in that place where you can control your levers of your life.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the goal for you, is when you're in a position to say no and to feel great about it, to turn down a speaking engagement that isn't the right fit for you. And some people will do that sooner than later because it does actually shave time and energy off your career and doing the wrong fit things. Sometimes a wrong fit gig will get you more wrong fit gigs, and that kind of derails you a little bit. So I think that's a great way to say you've made it, is when you say no and feel really good about it.
I love it. When you made it is when you can tell people no and you feel really good about it. I
Yes,
love
yes,
that.
yes, yes.
Well,
Love
you kind of hit on, like, as an actor, right, and as a model, I have to deny jobs that don't pay the amount or get me away from speaking because there's 2 different spots.
it.
But then some actors pigeon-toe themselves, like they take a bad role and then all of a sudden they're always pigeon-toed into that. And it's the same thing like what you're saying is they think that it's a good fit, but their agent or their manager says, take this, and it just goes downhill.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I would say is an example of that in speaking is, let's say your topic of focus is something under the leadership umbrella and you get asked to do, I don't know, team building is an example where you might be like, yeah, I think I could put something together and deliver a team building program, but it's not really, like, there are people who spend their whole careers just on team. They would be a better fit than
Yeah.
perhaps you would be. And so, okay, so you go and you do this team building thing and people like it. Well, now you might get another team building thing. And it's like, it's not taking you in the right direction. So that's the example of wrong fit Um, and I know in acting, I mean, who could ever know? It's really the whole hindsight thing
Yeah.
is 2020. Who knows you're going to get pigeonholed as this person, this character,
Mhm.
and now it really is hard to break free. I really watch actors for that and kind of look
Mhm.
and go, oh wow, I didn't even recognize them in that role. That was so good. That's a hard thing to do.
Well, absolutely. And it's neat though to see actors 20 or 30 years later and they get a resurgence, right? They all of a
Yeah,
sudden it's like their career takes off. And I would
yeah,
throw Hayden Christensen in that. Like for some reason, Star Wars, like the prequels have taken off again. And it's just
yeah,
like, what is happening? And he's just this huge star again. And it's like, that's
yeah,
so funny that they get that resurgence.
yeah, for sure. That's nice.
Well, and I love that. So with your speaking career, so you find like what you're liking, what you're not liking. What took you into going from a coach? When did you realize like this is more of what I'm passionate about is helping others work their career? Like was there a pivotal point where you're like, "Ooh, this is something that speaks to me and I want to do this."
Yeah, well, there was the crossroad was I have been an agent now for 15 years. I've been there, I've done it. I could kind of do it with my eyes closed. But also, there's something about when you're an agent, you really have to be available for clients 24/7. Like if there's a gig that somebody wants to book, you need to be available. I could have definitely moved into a small management agency.
Mhm.
I have actually several of my friends who came up the same way I did have gone on to do this. Holly Catchpole runs an amazing speaker's office. Karen Harris runs an amazing CMI speakers that they maybe have, a half a dozen to a dozen or 2 dozen speakers that they manage. I could have done that, but I didn't want to be available 24/7 for people. And so the freedom came in becoming a coach. And once I learned the craft of coaching, and let me tell you, I learned it 23 years ago and it's evolving still to this day. It's
Yeah.
not actually stayed the same. In during COVID, I got certified in a particular type of mindset process that has been a total game changer for my clients. And so I'm still evolving as a coach, and that's what gives me energy and gets me excited to, continue the work.
Well, and it's
So
never the same. It's never the
yeah.
same. You're always constantly improving and learning, and it's
Yeah.
and that also makes it fun for your clients
Mhm.
under you, and for your listener on your podcast. It's like you got to change things up. You got to continuously swim because that's helping you grow, and it finds passion and challenging life. And I think that process is the best part.
Yeah. And so the crux was really, do I keep being an agent and go off and do my own thing, or do I become a coach? And then speaking was, I've spoken at almost every chapter of the National Speakers Association and the one in Canada, CAPS. And I quit doing that. I don't do that anymore either, because I would probably be traveling half a dozen times a year for free speeches,
Mhm.
where I'll get great exposure. And sure, I'll make some money, I'll sell a buttload of books and I'll get some new clients, but I just don't want to do it anymore.
And I think you're hitting on something where like you're buying your own freedom back, and you're buying your happiness.
Yes.
And what I don't want the audience to hear is that it's like, oh, we're looking to be able to tell people no because that's the happiness. It's like it took you a long time. It did not
30
happen in
years.
1 minute, right? And
30
I
years.
think a lot of people see the momentous or like the monumental change, and they're like, oh, that person did that, but it's like there's a long journey
Yeah.
of challenges and struggles and life that just happens that are pushing you down and like crushing you, and it's like even for us, and when you get to that place, you look back, you're like, man, it was not an easy path.
But
And you obviously have moved.
I want to tell you when the vision started though, because manifesting and writing things down and visualization and all the things that Olympic athletes do
And if you're
has
not watching this video, Jane has a pen in her hand right now.
it's it's so powerful. My coach, shout out to Rich Fetke in California, who I don't even know if he's coaching anymore. He and I mapped this out over 20 years ago in my Dallas days. We started to map out what was perfect in my personal life. And then when I got to know another mentor of mine, his name is Dan Sullivan. He runs Strategic Coach. And I
Mhm.
went to Strategic Coach once a quarter for over a decade in Toronto. And they started to talk about, well, what would be perfect in your business? And so we would plant the seeds of, well, you know what would be perfect is working 3 days a week. But I was still a decade away from actually doing it.
Yeah.
So I want your listeners to know that they should make out the dream list today of what your perfect life looks like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, because sometimes what you think is absolutely impossible will come true later on and you'll be like, whoa, okay, that's a real crazy pinch me moment.
Oh, and that is golden, and I do want the listener to hear that, because and this is something to the listener that I've learned from you, Jane, is that it's important to highlight like what the nugget is that somebody's saying. And for somebody with your resume, that is a nugget. And you threw out Dan Sullivan with the 10 times is greater than 2 times. And it's like setting that audacious goal is not only have it a vivid audacious goal that you set, but
Mm,
then that path getting there is not going to be easy. But if you know you want that, the only way to do it is to write it. Like, you can't blindly shoot at a target and hope that it hits it. You have to know where you're going to go.
yeah. And working the steps backwards to getting there. And there were lots of steps that included lots of failure on the path to getting here.
And when we, do you ever look back at, like, my wife and I, we write out our 1 year, 5 year, 10 year goals. And we've done this since we got married 11 years ago. And we write it down, and I look back at these old notes and I'm like, I've hit it. I've hit it. I've hit it. I've hit it. I'm like, I hit it way faster than I ever thought that I could. I'm like,
Mhm.
man, that goal wasn't big enough. Let's go even bigger. Let's go
Yeah,
that 10 times. Right. And it's like, to be able to look back gives me so much like confidence. And I'm
yeah.
just so proud of myself. I'm like, oh, I started here and then I made it to here. I was reading Mel Robbins' Let Them book the other day, and or I started it. And as I'm reading it, she's talking about her first speaking gig, where the first 3 years were free. Then all of a sudden it turned into 46, and then 90. And it was just like, just to see that resume build. She didn't start at number one. It took a long time and a lot of pain and effort. And
Oh.
you've been that person.
And if we could give a little kind of like side tip, I saw Mel Robbins speak before she wrote the 5 second rule.
Mm-hmm.
And could I tell you what she spoke about? Nada. I did not remember one thing from her speech because she hadn't figured it out yet. And when she boiled it down to one idea, the 5 second rule,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically just, it's like Nike's just do it,
Mm-hmm.
get off your butt and go do something. Um, and she started delivering that speech, that's when her career skyrocketed. And so it's amazing how people think that you need to complicate things, but it's actually the most simple things that get you the most mileage in business.
And that goes for all industries. I mean, as long as you can focus in on and dumb it down and
Yeah,
make it simple, I
yeah,
think it really is. One of the things that I talk about is about going above and beyond. And it is not hard to go that extra mile.
yeah.
It is not difficult. It's not rocket science to stand out as a public speaker. It is not difficult to stand out as a model. It's not difficult, but it's just as easy not to do it. Right. And
Mhm.
so we have to be reminded on how simple it actually is. And when you, and one of the things that I found is that if I listen to people that I want to become,
Mhm.
or a mentor or somebody that I look up to, and I can listen to their road path or what they've taken, I can take those nuggets. And you have become one of those people for me. And so many of your guests have become those people for me, like Ryan Estes or David Averin, like these people that I hear and I listen to all the time. I'm like, man, that story really speaks to me.
Mhm.
And it just makes me realize, like, if they made it, I can do it too. And the path that they took might not be the same, but I can take nuggets to get there. And I love that because I can learn from their mistakes, their pitfalls, and I can adjust my path because that path might not be the same. But if I don't have it written out, I'll never know if I ever made it to that goal.
Love that. Love that. I think it's really important. And, some of the little hacks about separating yourself from the pack are being easy to work with, are texting the client to let them know that you've landed because that's their biggest panic, are understanding that you're just a little teeny tiny cog in a big giant wheel of a machine that's running, and don't think that the sun sets on you. It's
Mhm.
actually know your position in the whole big picture. I think that those are just things that allow people to stand out and to have a greater success more quickly.
You nail on the head, and it's like dealing with event planners and letting them know that you land, or because you don't want to be a problem for them, right?
Mm.
Like you want to help them, you want to make them shine, you want to make yourself shine, but you're bringing something to the audience of value, and it's like you don't want to be a cog like in the
Yeah.
wheels, right? And whether you're trying to pitch yourself, what are you doing to send a thank you card, a handwritten card? What are you doing when I send a book off? I wrap it, and I owe you a book, FYI. I wrap it in like a Japanese wrapping paper, and I send it, and it's bound in the same red and white paper or red and white ribbon that is used for the book binding. And
Right.
it just I get so many
Oh,
comments and posts on that, not my book, but on the actual way it's wrapped. And my wife came up with that idea, and
yeah.
it's just that one little thing to stand out from the millions of authors.
Mm-hmm.
How have you navigated becoming a six-time author? Like, it's not easy to write a book.
Mm-mm. And after the first one, I was finished. And the funny thing is, we had a girls' night, and they brought in a numerologist or a psychic or something like that. And she said, "Oh, you're going to write many, many books." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I just did the first one, and that was so hard. I'm never
Uh-huh.
writing another book again." Well, the ideas just kept coming to me, and we did one on the epic keynote because that was an important part. There is no better form of marketing than a great speech.
Mhm.
And then there was another one. Then I had to write with the Wealthy Speaker 2.0 because so much had changed. And then there was another one, scaling your speaking business. It was like as I evolved, the books evolved. Well, the 3.0 version of the Wealthy Speaker had to be done because the mindset piece was completely missing out of the other two. And I felt
Mhm.
like that was a real important piece. Plus, 3.0 came post COVID, and so much changed in our speaking business
Absolutely.
during COVID. So I felt compelled to do 3.0, but I said, that's it, I'm done.
Okay.
With
Move
that
on to
particular book,
3.5,
I'm done. I may
right?
write another book, but
Not the
I,
wealthy speaker.
yeah, it won't be
Okay.
that.
Um, but you've done your podcast for over a decade, and
Mhm.
you're almost 350 episodes in. How hard is that? What has been a big challenge for you as a podcaster, that you might tell a younger self of a younger you? Like, what is something that you have encountered as a podcast host that you didn't maybe realize was going to be that challenging?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening now is that we're on so many people's radar is that we are just trying to weed through all the pitches. So I tend to lean into people that I know,
Hmm.
and there's so many people in my world that I already know that we don't really, I guess in publishing, they'd call it a slush pile, just manuscripts that they've received, pitches
Yeah.
that they've received that they didn't ask for. And so they pull something out of the slush pile every once in a while and it's gold. And so I would say, first of all, we went from doing 4 a month to 2 a month
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want to have the pressure on me to continue to pump out content to such a degree. So we've shifted and now we do a blog post every Tuesday and then a podcast blog post every second Tuesday, podcast every second Thursday. So we kind of alternate them. And that was just based on not wanting to produce quite so much content anymore. And yeah, and then for some reason, all of a sudden, everybody writes to us with the exact same script. Oh, we saw
Chat
that
GPT?
on so and so's podcast. You went into this. That was so great. And now let me pitch you my speaker, my podcast person. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, wow, don't you guys ever think of anything else to say? It's like the same pitch every time. So I don't even look at those blue. I just forward them over to Monica, who vets everybody. And then
Uh-huh.
she comes to me every 6 months with a list of people and we go through them and she's already vetted them. What's their social reach? What's this? What's that? What's the other thing? And is it a topic that my listeners will want? And do I know them?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know them, that's kind of almost got them into another pile. And then we go through that pile.
I made that pile, FYI. I'm so lucky to have you on as a guest. So I appreciate that, Jane, because it was, well, you talk about navigating a no, right? And, as a speaker, we pitch ourselves and it's like, hey, are you interested in a speaker? And we're told no a lot more often than we hear a yes. And
Yeah.
the same when I'm looking for guests that I think that would bring value to the podcast and who have a great story and maybe could create some nuggets for my listeners. And I reach out and I say, hey, would you like to be a guest on the podcast? And some people say yes, some people ghost me, and some people say no. And it's a numbers game also, but it's like I want to bring the most value to my listener as I can. And I feel blessed that so many people who have put themselves out there and have taken a chance and have believed in what the topic is and believed in what my message is and what my mission is. It just gives me that much more confidence to be giving more value to people, because it is fun when you do affect somebody or make an impact and you do hear about it later down.
I love it. And well, the topic of your podcast, immediately I'm like, no, I'm a queen of no. I could definitely be on that show. And so then when we talked about it, you were talking more about failure and what have you. I'm like, okay, well, I certainly have lots to share on that too. But yeah, I just thought that navigating, it was all about saying no in your life. And
Well, I love, and I want to hit on that in a second. So,
okay.
well, actually, no. How do you deliver these no's? Like, how do you tell people empathetically or diplomatically? Like, what is a trick that you've used that lets people down in a nice way?
There are the people who pitch you. It's interesting to see, because some people think that the words, no, I'm not interested, thank you, mean that is an invitation to pitch me more. And that is not at all. And so I will actually, so first I'll be very polite.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not interested, thanks. And it's not saying at this time. That's
Mm-hmm.
the difference, okay? I'm not interested, period.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Complete sentence. And so when they come back and try to pitch me more, I'll go back and say, my no to you was not an invitation for you to pitch me harder.
Mm.
And that basically says, please go away.
Mm-hmm.
And, but if it's something like, hey, will you fly out and speak for an audience that I have no business in front of? It's really easy for me to say, thanks, that's not a good fit for me.
Well, and that authenticity right there is golden because, and we have many mutual friends that talk about like our community it's large, but at the same time it's small, right? And if I don't feel like it's a good fit, maybe I know someone who would be a
Yes.
better speaker. And you had mentioned this earlier, like I tried. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, you should be the MC at this event," and it was the hardest job I'd ever done in my entire life, and it was horrible to me. Like it just the anxiety and stuff. I was like, that is not for me. And I
Yeah.
realized immediately, like, I do not want to be an MC. I love being on stage and presenting a keynote, but I do not like the MC spot. It's a totally different shirt to wear.
So if
And
somebody calls you next time, Blue, hey, can you be our MC? It's no, but I could do this.
have you reached out to Jane Atkinson? Because she
No,
would.
I don't want to be your MC either. But no, but and actually, you could have half a dozen MCs up your sleeve. I know some great ones that are walking around the halls of NSA all the time.
Mhm,
Um, that's all they do is MC
mhm.
because that is a very particular skill set. And
Absolutely.
I understand that, you know, nobody is getting paid as much as they should get paid to do that skill set.
Mhm.
It takes so much out of you, and often it's for 3 days. And by the end of it, you are absolutely zapped of all of your
Drained.
energy. Yeah.
Yes.
So next time somebody asks you, you can have three in the chamber, and you can say, no, but I could do this.
Yeah.
I
I,
could
oh,
do
I like
I
that.
could come in and deliver
Keynote.
the opening keynotes. Have you got your keynotes? You know, sometimes the MC is one of the first people that they hire. Sometimes it's one of the last. You never know. But yeah, you could definitely kind of your way in for a keynote instead.
No, I love that. And you're right. And it's like having this community of people that we support each other really just makes us better and not
Yes.
taking one of those jobs where it's not a good fit and just being I mean, we all talk about being able to speak to everyone, but in reality, it's like focusing in on what we were really skilled at and what our
Mhm.
expertise is and what we can stand out on is the most important thing. And that's where I found my success. That is.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree with that. And one of the biggest things that we see people maybe doing wrong in the speaking world is not picking a lane. So when I say picking a lane, it can be taken in two different ways. One would be a topic lane, and the other would be an audience lane. I'm not necessarily talking about only speaking to a particular audience, but what we do offer up our clients is pick one, two, or three target markets to focus your outbound efforts on. And what comes to you may be something outside of that, and that's okay.
yeah.
Over on the topic side, we're a little more concrete about what we are an expert in. And we don't want to take something that's so far outside of our expertise that we have to create a whole new program for it. If you're spending all your time creating new programs, there is a problem.
I love that. And that is very true. It's so much easier to refine and plug in stories from the
Yes.
stage of like who I'm delivering it to versus making a whole new speech every time. And
Yes.
right when I know that you did Toastmasters and it was like you get so much practice practicing those little Toastmaster speeches and evolving it and growing and it was like it was hard to ever like I was in a Toastmasters group but there was only like 12 of us. So it was like I could speak every time
Mhm.
and it was like changing my speech every time. It's hard to memorize a speech every week, every 2 weeks. And for me to have a single speech or two speeches or three speeches that I only change just a little bit, I tweak just here and there, really focuses in on my energy and I can get to do what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah. We recommend people. I haven't been a Toastmaster myself, but I have spoken for Toastmasters. But we recommend that if you're really in the early stages, there's only two things that you should do: grab the Wealthy Speaker 3.0 and join a local Toastmasters group so that you get to practice a lot.
Oh,
And
and it's about putting the reps in. And
huge
it is
advantage. Yeah.
getting those reps in. And you 30 years of your career, you've put in these reps and along the way you have hit challenges and struggles. And one of them that I loved that I heard on one of your podcasts is Clubhouse. Like joining Clubhouse and diving in. Everybody was full in on Clubhouse. And I didn't find any return on investment on going with Clubhouse. And so was that something that you found challenging as well?
That was a no for me also. So I went down the road. I think we did it maybe for 6 months or something like that. And I thought, you know what? We're not spending our time efficiently enough with this. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be this big thing. And I don't know, maybe it's still going, maybe it is big, but it's not big enough that I hear people talking about it. I think a lot of times in our world, the problem is FOMO. People who have a fear of missing out are jumping on every bandwagon. And my theory is FOMO no mo. I do not care if I'm missing out. I'm
I'm going
okay
to share
with
that
it.
with my wife, Heidi. I love that.
But that
FOMO,
took
no
30
mo.
years too, right?
Yeah.
But it took a long time to get there. And lots of starts and stops on things that weren't going to pay off. And I just love my time being efficient, and I love our marketing dollars being efficient. And
Absolutely.
so we just analyze everything, and if it's not, it comes off the balance sheet. And we've been scraping away um, expenses and things for several years now.
But that's also you try it, and if it's not working, then it's not like you have to give up on it, but you're like, that's not the best spend of my dollar. And it's like, what else can I do? And you starting your own business, it is not easy going off on your own and being an entrepreneur and believing in yourself. Like, what has been one of the biggest challenges of you going from, let's say, a paid job or a career exactly with the agency or a bureau or as a manager, and it's like stepping out on your own is very, very scary for a lot of people, especially if we're older or whatever. And it's like, how did you overcome that? Like, what did you tell yourself, and what was your biggest challenge of doing that?
When I was with the Speakers Bureau, I had grown up with this bureau. So I had been there 6 years. We started with like three of us and a dog. It was crazy how, and then we grew to almost probably 30 people in this bureau. And it was this really cool facility. And so when I left there in Dallas to come back to Canada, and then all of a sudden I'm solo. And not only that, I'm in a new city. I moved to Calgary. I know a couple people, but I don't have like I don't have social, and I don't have work. And so all of those water cooler conversations that we'd have like every Monday morning, speakers, by the way, send tons of food to Speakers Bureau offices. And so we would always gather around whatever the food was in the break room, and we would be eating what people had sent.
Maybe I should start sending that to my bureau.
So that was my social. I mean, really, those people were all my friends.
Your
And
identity.
now I'm working by myself, and the speaking business is a lonely business to begin with. But now I'm not even in that. I'm kind of more a coach, off doing my own thing. Fortunately for me, Karen Harris was in Calgary at that time, and we were able to do some face-to-face stuff, which really allowed me to have like both the social and business conversations with somebody. And I actually worked for her for a couple of years as I was building my coaching practice, and that was so helpful. And but it was very, very lonely in the first couple of years, for sure. Now I'm way better at being by myself during the day.
Well, and you have a dog, right?
I have a husband and I have a dog, and so my dog is with me all day long, and usually the door's open because when I do my podcast, if he barks, he barks. If I'm with a client, if he barks, he barks. No big deal. Um, uh, but and then my husband is kind of in this almost quasi retirement where he's only doing work that he loves to do now. So he's maybe around 2 or 3 days a week as well. So we've got a good gig going on, and we can go up north to my cottage and spend 2 weeks every few weeks in the
Mhm.
summertime, and I can work from there, and it's really really lovely.
Well, it sounds to me like Karen was like one of those mentors to you and like a peer mentor. And would you give credit to mentors or people that you wish to emulate that helped you get out of this lonely space that you're like, I've got this. I can do this. Like what I can do my podcast. I can hire a team because let's talk about that for a second. Starting to grow your business and to scale as a
Mhm.
podcaster, sometimes we can't do it alone. And in order to scale, you have to bring other people on. You have to have a team. How
Mhm.
difficult of a conversation is that to have with your husband? How difficult is that to have a conversation with your bank where you're like, we don't have to spend some money in order to make more money and to believe in yourself? Because that is a challenge.
There were no conversations. We when I we had a threshold of, I don't know, maybe $5,000 or $10,000, that until we reached that, we didn't have conversations. He's always been supportive of my business. My business was always more profitable than his, so I think that was easy for us to navigate that. But and everything has been self-funded and self-driven, so there was never any conversations with the bank about expansion or growth. It was just kind of like a slow burn where, okay, we bring in this group to help us go from here to here. And so it's interesting. I think if we were to watch the trajectory, it would have
Mhm.
been like a very slow uphill curve. And then in the last few years, we've started to kind of ease back on things because I no longer wanted to do the same level of hustle. I
But
wanted
that's your
to take
choice.
I wanted to take my foot off of the accelerator,
Mhm.
and we scaled back. So we had lots of team at the peak, lots of expenses, lots of team, earning lots of income, but uh, particular parts of it we recognized weren't profitable.
Mhm.
So we kept analyzing the P&L and analyzing it and go, that's not profitable. So most recently inside my school, so I developed the Wealthy Speakers School, and we had three offerings inside the school: a do it yourself, a mastermind, and a kind of like a community
Mhm.
membership. And two of them, except for the mastermind, were not profitable. And so we had to make some difficult decisions, let some people go, and we really downsized. And I'm really, really happy with the sweet spot. But let me tell you, talking about navigating no or
Mhm.
rejection, this was after 15 years of launching to crickets, launching and not getting it right, launching and having like too many people in the group, and then realizing, oh, we can't have 100 people or they're never going to be able to say anything. So we need to go to this size of group. And it was almost like this whole Goldilocks situation where we tried this, we tried this, we tried this, and then this was just right. It took us a long, long time to figure out what was the perfect scenario, and lots and lots of rejection along the way. And I wouldn't say rejection, more like failure. Lots and lots of failure
Mhm.
along the way.
But you were learning from
I
that.
was
You learned what
learning.
worked and what did not work.
Yeah.
And that goes for any industry that we're in. It's like
Yeah.
you are going to fail more often than you ever win at everything. I've never won at everything I've tried to do. And it's like
Mhm.
when I fail at something or I lose, it's like I look at what I did and how I could improve upon that so that maybe the next time I'm a little faster or a little stronger, or I can diplomatically give that no, or I can learn from that situation so that when I do pitch it, it's a better pitch, or it's a better product, or it's a better speech, or it hits with an audience that much more. I mean, I'm constantly changing and tweaking my speech to see what joke works, what doesn't work, what pop culture reference works, what doesn't. I do handstand walks across the walk. Like, at what time do I do it? Do I do it at the beginning? Do I do it in the middle? What gets the audience to lean in? And it's like, it's always evolving. And it sounds to me like your career has been an evolution.
Yep.
And you found what you have found because of all the failures and all the successes that you've had. And you look at it a little differently, not as a no. It's not really a failure that you see it as, but more of as like a learning curve and like
Yeah.
moving along that. And now you're in control of that curve.
Just the path. It's not really, when you said to me, okay, we're going to talk about your setbacks and your failures. I'm like, gosh, And I really had a hard time like pinpointing something because I don't really think of it that way. I just think of like, that was a bump in the road and then we moved forward. And, I remember the very first time I launched my school, it went live and then nothing happened. Well, I learned that I needed to get with people and talk them through it and really, and almost even to this day, we've had to probably pretty much have a phone call with everybody that we've ever sold into the school. And so it's like, okay, well, that's just what it's going to take. And now we know that. But I was waiting for the numbers to just go cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And it didn't happen. And it was so depressing. I had a house full of people for something that was going on. And I'm watching my phone and nothing was happening. That felt like such a big failure. But it was really just the beginning of the evolution of a 15-year trial and error situation.
Well, and you continue to evolve and you continue to make a difference, and you are making a difference in this world. And I know that because of so many of the people that we know, same people. And when you bring a guest on and they tell their story, they're so complimentary to you, your program, your book, and just the message that you deliver, and you're helping people and you are making a difference, Jane. Seriously.
Thank you. That's lovely to hear.
Well, whatever you've been doing is great. And I think it's also like with the podcast, for example, you think like, oh, I'm going to launch a podcast, and it's crickets. Like, no, you could have the greatest book, you could have the greatest product, and if no one knows about it, it's never going to sell. And that's a big reality check for a lot of people. But to consistently keep grinding forward and improving and evolving and changing it and making a better you or a better product or a better service is the name of the game.
Thank you. Well, that's what we've been doing. And hopefully the Wealthy Speaker podcast will continue for a few more years. I would love to keep it going.
Well, I do love that, and I tune in all the time, and I make my team listen to it, and it's just like you are making a difference. So because when I listen to it, I hear it, and I'm like, oh, I need to apply that. I need to apply, but I need my team to apply it too, right? Like I need everybody on the same page. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Agreed.
If you could look back and tell your younger self something, what would that one thing be on how to navigate some of these challenges or no's in your life? What is the mantra or the thing that you would want to know and tell your past self?
I think what I do sometimes when I'm in the throes of it, because I have my own moments of self-doubt, last month, every summertime, things get quiet, and that's when the self-doubt tends to creep in. And so I have to work against that. And I do this little exercise where I think if I'm 70 or 80 years old, what am I telling myself in this moment? This too shall pass. This is going to be just such a little blip. And so I've actually started to put like some structures in place so that next June, I will remember that June is a very slow month, And so save up some money from May because you're going to need it in June. But then my year end happens and July, I'm going to have to pay taxes. And so every year I get myself into this like summertime crunch financially. And that's when I start to lose my mojo. I start to get, self-doubt starts to creep in and I start to question myself. So I think what I've gone to now is talk to your 80-year-old self, because when she looks back on this, she's going to say, of course, everything turned out fine. You know, it's going to. And that's the person that sometimes I talk to because I think she has more wisdom than I do.
Oh, I love that because, and you're hitting on a theme that a lot of other people have mentioned. And Bert Thornton, the old CEO of the Waffle House, mentions that one of his greatest things was to find a mentor 10 years older and then to ask him, what would you do? And one of his mentors said, think of yourself 10 years younger. What would you tell yourself?
Yeah.
And every single year, just know that decade you're going to change and you're going to grow, and this too shall pass. And somebody just mentioned that, and I love that mantra, Jane. And I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for our speaking world and our community. You're making it a better place. You're actually impacting people, and I know for a fact you've impacted me and helped me along my path. And I am blessed. And you're so amiable and giving with your time. Where can people find out more about you and your podcast?
I think for one-stop shopping, we could send them over to speakerlauncher.com. We have the podcast on there. We have a link to our school. We have a link to private coaching. Everything is there in one place.
Well, and I would also mention that it's not only just for speakers, because it's anybody who wants to know like how to get up in front of somebody and talk. Like there's so many nuggets that you talk about, because that's one of the greatest fears that people have is speaking in public. And some of your episodes just hit home on how to I believe it was Jennifer Darling did the LinkedIn. And it's like, I learned so much about LinkedIn, and that just happened to be on your podcast, right? And it's like, there's so much value that you bring with your podcast. And so I would definitely tell people to check you out and to look into, even if you're not wanting to be a career public speaker or keynote speaker, you bring so much value, and your guests do too. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Blue.
Well, I appreciate you, and I'm wishing you the best of luck. And you have a long road to get to 80, so don't worry. Just keep asking that self. And I just appreciate your time, and keep doing what you're doing, because you are making that difference, Jane. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to Navigating No. If this episode brings you value, or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in, and let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.